and 1880 critical.
Thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you again at our future events.
My job is to introduce the facilitator for our meeting, Professor Shane Clifton. Shane is Professor of Theology at the Alphacrucis College and an Honorary Associate with the Centre for Disability Research and Policy, the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Sydney. His field of research is Pentecostal theology, and since he incurred a spinal injury in 2010, disability studies. He has a book coming up, Crippled Grace. It's an interdisciplinary study that examines the virtue tradition's conception of the good life from a disability perspective. Please welcome Shane Clifton.
I received this guest list. It was a little bit overwhelming. It was long and serious, and I thought, I better wear a tie. And I went to look in my cupboard and realised I don't even own one, so maybe that says something about me. Anyway, I'd like to welcome Barry Unsworth, former Premier of New South Wales and an Affinity Advisor Board member, Sophie Kotsis, State Member for Canterbury, Carl Hartlett, the Consul General, Marion Scanlon, Assistant Director of the Department of Social Services, Priya Puziel, Multicultural Community Liaison Officer, New South Wales Settlement and Multicultural Affairs Department of the Social Services, and the person with the longest title I've ever seen. Serena Ovens, Executive Officer of St Helens Community Centre. Abdullah Aksu, Board Chair, Amity College. Ali Dupree, Manager of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Sydney. Rafat Abid, Professor at the University of Sydney. Karen Ferrenti, State Coordinator of Testing of CEC New South Wales. Melanie Hardman, Access and Inclusion Officer, Canterbury Bankstown Council. And Marie McEwin, Organiser of the Independent Education Union. Quang Nguyen, Member of the Labor Party and the National Disability Insurance Scheme, a very important scheme. David Sherlock, CEO of David Sherlock Consulting. Heather Top, Reverend Buddhist Council of New South Wales and Ambassador to the World Parliament of Religion. Margaret White, Senior Educator of the Anti-Discrimination Board. Diane Rogers-Healy, Director of the Australian Centre for Leadership of Women. That's the end of the list. I said it was long and important. It's enough to scare us all. I'd also like to thank Sayed Yalkin from the Golden Kebab Manufacturing for being a generous sponsor of this event. Well, look, it's my delight today to introduce our keynote speaker, Alastair McEwin, who I hadn't met before, but I'm delighted to meet today. He is the Australian Disability Discrimination Commissioner, began his role in August 2016. In my view, his is the most important job in our country. He follows in the footsteps of the renownable Graham Innes, who I'm sure you'll have heard of, and there was a gap in between their appointment that was quite disheartening for people with disabilities. And so it's thrilling to see him taking that role up and running with it. Alastair's educational background is in arts, law and business administration, and he's a strong background in working with not-for-profit organisations. Prior to his current role, he was the chairperson of the New South Wales Disability Council, which I think is being led by Mark Tonga at the moment, a person with a very serious spinal cord injury. He was also the president of the Deaf Society of New South Wales and chairperson of the Australian Theatre of the Deaf. He's also been the coordinator of the World Federation of Deaf Expert Group on Human Rights and an adjunct lecturer for the Masters of Community Management degree of University of Technology, Sydney. And he's the sort of person who's managed to keep his two assistants with him for more than 16 years, so maybe that says something about him. Today, Alastair will be presenting a talk titled 25 Years of Disability Discrimination Law in Australia. The Disability Discrimination Act was introduced in Australia in 1992, about the same time as it was introduced in the US and in some other countries. It's the federal legislation that enacts and protects the rights established under international law for disabled people. Over the past 25 years, the Act has been instrumental in social change and the fight against discrimination in many different areas, and it's helped many different people. Alastair's presentation will look at what the Disability Discrimination Act protects and how it's been used to create change for people with a disability. I'm not sure whether he's going to cover this, but I wonder whether we might also note some of the ways in which it's failed to achieve its ideals. As a small aside, it took me about 15 minutes to get into the building today because that ramp out the front is utterly inadequate and there's no disabled toilets in the building. So, and we're 25 years after the Discrimination Act was implemented. So make of that what you will, and I look forward to hearing from you, Alastair. Thank you.